If everybody could settle down, we could start and leave you more time for questions. Thank you. Okay.
Kids call that
My
the big
name is
hammer.
Del Snow, and I want to welcome you all here tonight. Um, I know all of us feel united in our concern for the hurricane victims and, of course, for all the victims of 9/11. And I'm glad that we are the community that we are, that stands together. CHALT is proud to once again host a forum for the 2017 candidates for Chapel Hill Mayor and Town Council. CHALT is a civic organization formed in 2014 that works to elect local officials who will be responsive and respectful to residents' concerns and who will be good stewards of the town we love. Our objectives are to return to and maintain high standards for new development based on evidence and analysis, wise use of our tax money, and the assurance of inclusiveness and affordability for all, including our police officers, firefighters, and teachers. In 2 weeks, we will interview each individual candidate for half an hour. CHALT supporters will then decide on endorsements by democratically choosing those candidates who best meet the criteria we have outlined, which is publicly available on our website at chalt.org. I want to thank our filmers who are here in the back, Alan and Layla, for their valuable work tonight. And now I want to introduce Will Dunhausen, who is our moderator for tonight. Will earned a BA from Illinois College in Jacksonville, Illinois. He joined the Dispute Settlement Center in 2004 and conducts trainings, interventions, and facilitations for adults in government, organizations, and workplaces. He is a certified mediator, and we feel fortunate to have him moderating tonight's forum. Thank you, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
Oh, that was nice. My name is Will Dudenhausen, and I work for an organization here over in Carborough called the Dispute Settlement Center. But that's not really my role tonight. I hope not. But my role tonight is to moderate a discussion. And I first off want to thank the Chapel Hill Alliance for a Livable Town for asking me to moderate and for having the privilege to be up here tonight and being a part, like you all, of our participatory democracy here. So briefly before we get started, I'd like to go over sort of the agenda tonight and some ground rules for both our participants and the audience. So first off, we are going to start off, and each candidate is going to have 2 minutes up here to explain a little bit about why they are running for town council or mayor, as it were. And we'll have a timekeeper down here to keep that in check for us. And when we get through each council candidate's 2 minutes, each will address a big picture question that will be the same for each candidate. And they will have 3 minutes to answer that question. At that point, when we finish that process, audience questions will come. And the way that will work is that each audience or each candidate will field at least one question from the audience. So if one candidate has already got a question, we will move through the queue until we get to the next. And then we will have up to 2 45-second follow-ups from other candidates. The rules, and I'll explain this more clearly in a second, will be that you will not be able to follow up more than twice in a row or answer 2 questions in a row. And this will help us balance conversation tonight and make sure everybody gets an opportunity. So that is how the agenda will go for tonight. At that point, well, I guess it'll be about 9 o'clock, and I hope we'll be finished by then because we have a fairly hard stop time then. And To get all of this done in 2 hours, we have some ground rules that I would like us to follow. So, for our candidates tonight, as I just mentioned, share the floor. No candidate shall answer 2 questions in a row when we get to that audience participation time. So, if you've answered a follow-up, you can't answer a follow-up the next time around, okay? We will have a simple system where if you want to get in on one of these follow-up questions, raise your hand, okay? And I will do my best to balance that conversation as much as I can up here. Next, I want us to all agree that disagreement is okay, it's natural, and that we stay out of the personal realm tonight. All right? And last but not least, each candidate tonight will field at least one direct question from our audience. Okay. For our audience tonight, when we are lining up in the queue over here, I want us to really think through what we want to ask. This is not an audience or a public forum. It is not designed to be that way. So what I want to make sure that our audience thinks through is that when they come up here to ask a question of our candidates, to use our time in the most efficient manner as possible, and not to make a public comment. If you need to, we have provided index cards where you can write down questions. We've asked to do your best to limit those questions to 2 sentences. If we're probably going on with more sentences than 2, it's probably more comment than question. Next, same with you all. No personal attacks either. Okay, so when we ask our questions, when we're wanting to address our council and mayoral candidates, keep it about not being personal, please. And last but not least, please hold our applause and our crowd reaction. And this is for no other purpose than to use our time efficiently. If we end up with 20 seconds of applause every time there's a question, that tends to add up after a while, and we won't have as many questions that we can answer in here. Can we all agree to abide by said ground rules tonight?
Yes.
All right, that sounded mostly yes. So we're gonna go with yes on that one. And I just want to point out a couple of housekeeping things. Restrooms are located right out those double doors into the hallway. The queue for questions when we get to that point will be right up here. If you need index cards or more than that, we've got them around the room. And I think that's just about it. So let us go ahead and get started. So at this point, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to go down the list alphabetically. I will ask you to come up here. You'll have 2 minutes to answer the question, why am I running for town council or mayor? And right up here we have Fred, and he has got a yellow, and that says 15 seconds left, and he's got a red, and that means Will's about to come give you the hook. Okay? All right, so we have council candidate Alan Buonsi, please.
All right, last name Boyncey. Think of Joincy. First off, I want to thank CHALT for hosting this forum. It's so important that we have engaged and informed voters, so I appreciate y'all being out here tonight. My name is Alan Boyncey, and I'm running to be your next Chapel Hill Town Council member. I grew up here. I love Chapel Hill. My mother, when I was about 13 years old, she challenged me to be introspective and to be an agent of change. And so as I moved through the Chapel Hill Carborough school systems, I really thought hard about, how I want to serve people. And so I'm a proud product of the Chapel Hill Carborough City School System, and I'm proud to say that I'm a civil rights attorney over at the UNC Center for Civil Rights. I've also been a leader. I've served on a couple of town commissions. I've served on the town's grievance hearing board. I've also served on the town subcommittee that was dedicated towards making sure that we appropriately recognized the enslaved people that built the university. I've also done a bit of research. I've presented and conducted research for the historic Rogers Road Task Force, in particular when it came to the question of how Chapel Hill was going to extend sewer lines. I did a lot of research on extraterritorial jurisdiction, and the historic Rogers Road Task Force had that as a recommendation that they presented to town council, and town council went ahead and extended that jurisdiction out to that community, which has for so long had been without sewer lines. So, with all that, like I said, I'm a civil rights lawyer, and I'm naturally inclined to want to protect folks who are being adversely affected. I want to make sure that we are bringing in those impacted communities and making them partners when it comes to any kind of town government decision. So, with all that, I thank you.
That was a very hard stop. That wasn't any of the audience actually, but I did forget to remind us to please turn down our cell phones to vibrate. I understand that a lot of us might need to have them on because we have friends and family that are in difficult places right now, but let's turn them to vibrate if we can out there. Next, we have Town Council candidate Eugene Farrar. Mayoral candidate.
Good evening. I do want to extend my opportunity to say thank you for this opportunity to come before the town and also the citizens of Chapel Hill. I'm running, my number one reason for running is so that we can fulfill extremely low employment on our police department, who has a crisis in hiring that we need to have town of Chapel Hill protected. And the other reason that I'm running is because we allow the police, the teachers, the fire department to work in Chapel Hill, but yet we won't provide housing for them to live in Chapel Hill. And I think that is a situation or a problem that we can address, and I will address when I become mayor. The other thing is too is that our golden years. You talk about lifetime citizens, 65 plus thousand citizens in Chapel Hill who live here, who pays taxes here. My goal is to cap the taxes on long-time, lifetime residents here so that they won't be struggling in their golden years to pay taxes from their savings, 401k, whatever their savings may be. And I think we can do a better job with that by integrating downtown Chapel Hill. Another one of my ambitions is to integrate downtown Chapel Hill with our citizens. How do we invite them back to Franklin Street when the students are gone? The students are here for 9 months. And so what do we do the 3 months that they are gone? So my ambition is to have events on Franklin Street that will bring revenue and bring the citizens who live here 12 months out of the year back on Franklin Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Ong Bengu.
Okay, good evening. My name is Hong Bin Gu, and thank you very much for coming to this forum. And first, I would like to pray for all the ones who have lost their life in 9/11, and also all the people who are still in the harm's way, that preparing for the storm. So let's hope that they will all be safe and sound. So let me say a little about myself, who I am, and why I'm running for the town council. Okay, so I was born during the Cultural Revolution in China, and my parents left me when I was only 1 month old. So I was brought up by my grandparents, who taught me that I have to work hard, believe in myself, and help others whenever I can. So I come to this town 23 years ago, first as a graduate student, and now I'm a faculty at the School of Medicine doing quantitative research, helping the children with developmental delay and autism. And I'm married with 2 daughters. They both go to public schools. And over the years, this community has given me so much, and that's the reason that I'm running. I'm eager to give back to this community. So during the months that running for this campaign, I get a chance to talk to many people. I met an artist. I met an artist who has her business in Chapel Hill for 15 years and decided to moving to Durham. And I met a resident in Booker Creek area, and he showed me the houses that has been flooded. If I'm running for the town council, I'm going to do my best to help the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have current council member Ed Harrison.
First, thanks to CHALT for having this forum and for all of you for coming. If I weren't running, I'd be in the audience with you. I'm Ed, and I'm running for re-election, and I hope you'll vote for me, and I hope you'll tell your friends and family and other associates to vote for me as well. There are a number of reasons to run for re-election. In my case, I'm just going to talk about 3 of them. Things I'd like to continue doing. I'd like to continue my leadership in advocating and achieving a wide range of transportation options in Chapel Hill, particularly for people who want to get around without using a car. Right now, with my boot on the leg, I tend to have to do car or bus, but like doing a bicycle myself. And that's, people all the way from strollers and scooters to people getting to work in the university. And another thing I'd like to work on, and tied very much to my 40 years of professional and advocacy experience with the environment, is a higher environmental quality for Chapel Hill, the highest we can come up with. And I've focused especially on stormwater management, which I've learned a lot about being the liaison to the Stormwater Board. I recommend getting on it if you can. And also open space protection, which has been a professional interest of mine for years, and I get at it by any means necessary. And I want to also continue what I'm told is an excellent record of public service. I try hard to be a public servant. I think that's what I'm supposed to be on council. I try hard to let interested people, including those in this room, know what's going on and what you can find on the web about a council meeting as soon as the council knows. And I work to encourage people to come out to public meetings and public hearings because they are the public's meetings, not the council meetings or the government's meetings. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Next, current Mayor Pam Heminger.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you also to CHALT for hosting this forum and all of you for being here. It shows your commitment to your community, that you want to learn about the people who will be leading us in the future. I'm going to start off by saying how grateful I am for being your mayor for the past 21 months. It's actually been an incredible journey that I've gotten to connect with so many wonderful people in our community and learn so much about all the good things going on in Chapel Hill and all the needs we have. When we started out, we set some goals in 2015, and I want to share with you some of the ways that we have met those goals. By bringing the community together for the Food for the Summer program, by purchasing the American Legion property, by creating an enterprise zone north of town, moving ahead on a town-wide mobility plan, installing those sidewalks we all voted for, especially the one on Homestead Road, and creating an innovation council. There's so much more that we've been working on this last time that it's exciting and exhausting and wonderful all in one. But I see a very bright future for Chapel Hill ahead of us. I'm excited to lead our community as we take those next steps, and I know we can be that creative, sustainable, livable, and inclusive place to live, work, play, and learn that will be open to everyone. So that's why I'm running for mayor. Thank you.
Current council member Maria Palmer.
Thank you. Good evening. You can get some of my flyers out there and read whatever I skip tonight. You can read later. I'm running for 3 reasons: because I believe progress must continue, because social justice requires a proactive government, and because I want to use my expertise and all that I have learned in the last 4 years serving as your town council member. Progress must continue. If you look outside at the beautiful poster on the way out of our Chapel Hill 2020 goals, you will see subsets, and we have accomplished quite a few of those, but we still have to move forward with stormwater improvements that we have been working on and need to continue to implement: greenways, bike lanes, building a farmer's market, revising the LUMO, building a teen center, moving forward in so many ways. Social justice requires proactive government. We must continue investing in Black neighborhoods and youth empowerment and affordable housing. We need to promote a living wage, and we need to do better with minority representation in Chapel Hill. And lastly, I do want to use my expertise. It's been hard-earned, even though I had a lot of volunteer experience. You have to really get in the weeds when you serve on town council. I love Chapel Hill, and I believe better is possible. I want to make Chapel Hill better for everybody, the best we have ever been. Thank you.
Council candidate Rachel Shavitz.
Thank you. Thank you, CHALT. Thank you, all of you, for being here in the rain. I appreciate it. I am Rachel Shavitz. I am running for a seat on Chapel Hill's Town Council. I have always been engaged in my communities, but after this most recent national election, I felt a new sense of urgency. I really needed to serve. I am a mom, I'm a woman, and I felt it wasn't enough to volunteer. I needed to do more to serve my town and my country, and that is why I'm in this race. I also teach film at UNC, and this semester I have paired my film students up with Chapel Hill nonprofits. Their job is to make a video that will help our nonprofits expand the great work they already do. Folks you'll recognize like Table and Community Empowerment Fund. I tell you this because I think it helps you understand how I approach challenges. This class is a collaborative, practical, creative solution to a number of problems. Our nonprofits don't have a marketing budget. They need some help. Our students no longer have a film industry in North Carolina where they can get professional experience. They need some help. This class makes solutions for both of those problems realistic and practical and achievable. I take that spirit with me into everything that I do. My volunteer work here in Chapel Hill and on the Cultural Arts Commission, and as chair of the American Legion Task Force. I'm so excited about this opportunity. Our town has bought 36 acres of virtually untouched land, and what we do with that land matters. It will send a message about what we value as a town. If we pave it and put up luxury apartments, well, that sends a message about what we value in this town. If we make it connective, if we make it green, if we make it sustainable, if we make it accessible at every income level, that sends a clear message. I'm in this race to help tell that story and send that message, and I hope I'll have your vote. Thank you.
Next, we have candidate Carl Schuler.
Good evening. I'd like to thank CHALT for having this forum for this evening, for you, Will, for your time and effort to moderate the forum. I'm Carl Schuler, and I am running for town council. I'm also asking for your vote. Why I came to be where I am today has been a product of engagement and finding opportunities to address current issues that we find ourselves with the Chapel Hill 2020. As Maria had mentioned, we're making some progress, but there's more progress to be had. So, simply put, you could think of my platform as ACT. I didn't spend time creating this, but here it is. You might recognize this. With affordable housing for community, and for transportation. Now, that is a lot to encompass, and later on this evening, we'll be able to talk about that and get into the details about that. But my background is this. First of all, I'm a registered nurse. I came from many years of healthcare, many years at UNC hospitals where I had gotten my ICU training. Now, I use the information from healthcare and critically analyze clinical trials. So I work now as a clinical trial monitor. I work at Duke University with Duke Clinical Research Institute, where my day is spent in conducting clinical trials nationwide. I also do volunteer work, and I had been involved with the Community House program. I have also been on the Board of Adjustment and is appointed to my second term on the Board of Adjustment. And I'm also involved in the community with Blue Ribbon Mentor Advocates. So as far as community, I am talking about inclusivity, integration, commonality, something that we can all work for. And I would like to do that. My name is Carl Schuler, and I would very much like to earn your vote. Thank you.
Next is candidate for council, Karen Stegman.
Good evening. Thank you so much to CHALT for hosting and for all of you for being here. My name is Karen Stegman. I'm running for town council. I have deep roots and a very strong commitment to this community. I was born and raised here in Chapel Hill in a household committed to public service. As an adult, I've built my career here in Chapel Hill in the local nonprofit sector. For example, working in our Chapel Hill public housing communities, working side by side with families to help remove barriers to achieving their goals and dreams for themselves and for their families. That experience led me to serve and to later chair the town's Housing Advisory Board and advocate for more progressive policies guiding our public housing communities. Now I am the Director of Business Development for an $85 million a year global health nonprofit, also based here in Chapel Hill. I'm also a mom of two amazing children that I'm raising here in the Booker Creek neighborhood with my wife, Allison. We're very involved in the community as a family. I recently co-chaired the Ephesus School Improvement Team, and we are the neighborhood coordinator for Porch, the local hunger relief organization. And we've been at Moral Monday and the Women's March and all sorts of efforts locally to advocate for change. Chapel Hill has changed a lot since I was a child, and it will continue to change. But to me, what hasn't changed is what is important about our community and what we believe in, the progressive values that we hold dear. And if I'm elected to council, I will work to champion policies that embrace those values and continue that future for our town. Thank you.
Thank you all for getting us started. And we're going to move into the section now where we have a common question that we're all going to answer. I'm going to read it for the benefit of those of us maybe sitting a little further in the back that might not be able to see those screens, but you can also find it right up here on this screen. The question is, describe how the town government can make progress towards two or more of the following goals. Choose those that you think are the most important to the town and provide specific actions or policies you would pursue as mayor or council member. Number one, protect and enhance Chapel Hill's distinctive college town characteristics. Number two, reduce traffic congestion and increase mobility. Number three, require high standards for new development. Number four, promote housing, shopping, and recreation for all residents. And finally, spend our tax money wisely. And one more time, those five were with respect to describe how the town government can make progress towards two or more of the following goals. Choose those that you think are the most important and provide specific actions or policies you would pursue as mayor or council member. There's going to be 3 minutes. The question will stay up on the screen for us. And again, we can find our timekeeper right up there. We're going to stay seated for this one and just kind of go through the same order that we did before. Okay? Ready? Okay.
All right. Well, my responses to questions 2, 3, and 4 overlap to some degree. But with respect to number 2, I have 2 prongs with that. So first is biking. Biking is a major mode of transportation in our town among certain communities, but we could do a lot more to make it easier for folks to ride to and from work, especially if they live in town and work in town. And what I would like to do is, within the framework of the town's bike plan, implement implement bike lanes on 2 of the major arteries of Chapel Hill. I'm talking about Martin Luther King Boulevard and also Franklin Street. Often a barrier to folks riding their bikes is lack of feeling of safety. So if we can have some lanes on those bikes, that would encourage folks to, decrease the use of their cars and increase the use of biking. Secondly, the second prong is along the lines of busing. We have a community just north of town called Rogers Road. Right now, there's a bus line that goes through that neighborhood, but a lot of folks there who work in Chapel Hill, who go into town for for recreational activities or fun, they have to use their cars, and it's because of the infrequent services. It's because there's only one stop out there. And there was a survey done by the Marion Cheek Jackson Center in which well over half of those residents, and I'm talking about immigrant families, I'm talking about African Americans, well over half of those residents said that they would use bus transit if they had a couple more stops and if they had a more regular service line going through. Now, with regards to question number 3 and new development, I would look to improve our form-based code. It's a good concept, but a lot of folks don't like it as currently constructed. And it doesn't do a great job of applying the public's input, especially when we're talking about walkability and energy efficient practices. So I would look to improve in 2 aspects. One is to actually apply the public input that has been given, and then also to encourage the development of commercial properties. We have a very high tax burden on our homeowners here, and with our town revenue generating about 80% of that town revenue comes from our residential property taxes. Ideally, we'd like to have that balance. 60 residential and then 40 commercial. Then just lastly, in response to question number 4 in housing, we need to be consistently enforcing that set aside, the 15% set aside in the inclusionary zoning ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate for mayor, Eugene Farrar.
Reducing traffic, number 2, reducing traffic and congestion. My suggestion is this, is that we take on the responsibility of moving our traffic, our buses moving out further to which will integrate other county members and other visitors into Chapel Hill. But how we do that to eliminate the congestion is that we build parking lots. So we need a parking lot that will hold somewhere 1,500 to 2,000 cars. I think that would help create some of the congestion or eliminate some of the congestion downtown. The other thing is that we have to look for creative ways on how we can get people in and out of Chapel Hill without cars. And our bus service does a good job of that. But at the same time, it's limited when students leave. My goal is this: is that we can expand our transit system. We can do it by having uh, the traffic going in some other direction, because I think right now our streets are small, and we have to figure out ways how to take a lot of the traffic off. And I think having the park and ride lots will help do that if we can expand that, and also again if we can build parking decks to accommodate some of the traffic. The other high standard for developers, I think we need to figure out how we can save green space rather than putting up high-rise buildings. We can create small homes for residents to live here. I don't think that would be a big problem in creating a traffic jam. I think it would create a problem for people who want to live here. They can't afford to live here.
Next, candidate Ong Bengu.
Okay, I'm going to address the question, some combination of question number 1, 2, and 4. So when we talk about the characteristics of Chapel Hill, I think this is a very important question for us, because when we talk about the city planning, I believe that city planning should be based on the strengths and the values of this town. And our strengths and the values, in a big part, it depends on the characteristics of who we are and how we want to live. So what are the characteristics for Chapel Hill? I think that to summarize, there are probably 3 of the characteristics that I consider are most important. The first one is inclusivity and the social justice. I think Chapel Hill is a town that we have the people from all backgrounds, and we have people coming from 59 different countries and talking in 48 different languages. So we have so many different peoples from all over the world, and we have people coming from different social economic backgrounds across different ages. So diversity is a part that we take pride in Chapel Hill. And as we said, that the American mosaic is the most beautiful part of our town. And individually, that we're beautiful individually, but we are a masterpiece putting together. So that is the thing that I think I'm going to promote if I'm elected to the town council. In order to promote that, we need rich cultural programs and events like what we did earlier this year in a light up event that has been well received by the community and attended by more than 7,000 people. So the second characteristic, I would say, is the environment and healthy living. We are the southern part of the heaven, so we take great pride in that. And I remember when I apply for which graduate school to go, I see this beautiful picture of a Chapel Hill with pointed chapel and brick walls and like green lawns. It's just such a beautiful place. And we need to take great care to maintain our character as Chapel Hill. And in order to do that, I think that there are many things that we can do. So one thing that I want to echo what Alan and Eugene had both mentioned is the alternative transit system. I think alternative transit system that emphasizing on the public transit, a more reliable and viable public transportation, and also the alternative transits like bike lanes and the pedestrian passes that will improve not only the environment and also is beneficial for people's health. The third character will be education and innovation. And we have the top-ranked researchers in Chapel Hill, and we have the launch programs that are trying to using the university's innovation as the hub of economic development. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Ed Harrison.
Thank you. They're all 5 interesting questions, and I've worked on all of them. I'm going to pick the 2 where I have the most experience achieving things. First, I hope isn't surprising, is reducing traffic congestion and particularly increasing mobility. That was my platform the first time I ran, to connect Chapel Hill better to itself and to other communities. And I've done a lot of that, particularly now as chair of the Public Transit Committee, which is Carborough and UNC and us working together. When we partnered with UNC in Carborough now in 2001, 2002, to take our bus system fare-free, we tripled the ridership in about 5 years. And the numbers that came to us, we required counts from the university on streets around the university, showed that traffic actually dropped, which is what's supposed to happen, but we had never seen it empirically before. It's probably crept back up again, but fare-free transit, with that its addition to ridership and still an efficient system, did a whole lot to reduce traffic congestion right around the university. It hasn't rippled out to the community quite as much, and one next step we're taking, first time in a while, is to do a short-range transit plan, short range being 10 years. My friend Damon Siles of Carborough and I are the policy co-chairs for that, and I invite you to be part of it. It's going to start, I hope, late this month, and it needs all the public input and all the good thinking we can come up with. Damon and I want to expand the system to be more than the university system. The university is the major contributor by far compared to all the other contributors, but we'd like to have more than the hub and spoke system we have right now. Buses can't work well if they're stuck in traffic, and so one thing I've been part of leading, along with other council members, is our first bus rapid transit project, the North-South project, which runs out on MLK if it works. It's a challenge to do. It does get buses out of traffic, keeps them on the street, and that's another one we're into project development right now. It's going to be a hard slog with the current administration, but and we're one of the only projects in the Southeast. But we hope to make progress on that and make something that works. And I also want to work to get beyond buses altogether. And I have been working since well before I was on council on getting more bike space, as I call it, in sidewalks in Chapel Hill. With the bond issue that Mayor Pam mentioned earlier, we are making serious progress for the first time in years, and I hope you will participate with all of us in prioritizing our projects the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pam Henmacher.
So I like this question because I want to hear all the responses that come out, but it also shows what the community's thinking about. And all of these are interwoven together. I did go after a couple of them because that's who I am and how I look at things. And it's been part of my history. I have helped nonprofits go towards a path towards financial sustainability while not losing their values that they hold dear. And I've helped us take steps towards balancing our tax base. That'll give us real dollars to do the things we care about. And the long-term forecasting. How do you get there? What's the plan? Let's think strategically. Let's pool our resources, and let's make it work. All these actions will help Chapel Hill have the amenities and services they want without overburdening the property taxes, and that's a really important goal. A top priority has been affordable housing, and we've spent the last year, and workforce housing. There's terms are all mixed around, but we want a place where everyone can live, and we need help with that. We spent this last year gathering information and trying to determine where we are, so that we can think strategically about where we want to go. We can set those goals. We have a strategic plan coming out this fall, and then we'll know what resources it takes to go there. The other unique thing that's happened this year is we've really partnered with not only our housing providers, but with our biggest employers, UNC and UNC Healthcare. And we're working on some joint projects together that I hope are going to be very fruitful for providing more of that housing. When you pool those resources together, you really maximize your efforts. I also went after the one about working to have opportunities for people to shop, dine, work. Well, I added work. Shop, dine, work here. We've really been working on creating jobs and spaces for people to be here, capturing those spinoffs, keeping them here, growing existing businesses, And attracting more business and commercials like space like this will bring more shoppers in. It will bring more people to our own businesses, but it'll also reduce traffic. If it's local jobs, if you can live and work and play here, then we won't have as much of a traffic issue. It's been hard, though. The retail market has changed significantly, and so has the development market. And so it's been a very interesting balancing act. We did work with UNC this year to create an innovation council to pull people together to find out what were the barriers to entry so that we could regain our place in capturing those wonderful spin-off companies. It's an amazing engine coming out of both the campus and our own community. And finally, taking some very proactive steps on the recreation piece here. I totally believe in healthy living. Part of me, I was on Parks and Rec for many years, coached many sports, really understand the dynamic of making a healthy community by healthy living. So I was excited when we bought the American Legion property. The athletic fields in North Chapel Hill are a conversation that's getting started. And let's not forget pickleball. We talked about that earlier. 500 citizens signed up to play. We've made 6 courts. We need a lot more. And these are just exciting things that we can do.
Thank you, Councilmember Maria Palmer.
Thank you. To protect and enhance Chapel Hill's distinctive college town characteristics, we have to protect the university and Chapel Hill as a community, as a college town. One of the worst parts of our job as town council members is to talk about litigation and to talk about our relationship with the General Assembly. And I'm not kidding when I say that we are in the bullseye of a lot of regressive Republicans, and the mayor knows because she's been bullied and threatened, and all of us have been. So I have marched, I have protested, I'm committed to the legacy of Bill Friday, Terry Sanford, and all the progressive North Carolinians who built UNC, where I got my graduate degree, my doctorate. So that's one thing that I truly am committed to. The last 4 are related. To reduce traffic and congestion, we need to stop adding cars to the commuter count. So we either have to have alternative transportation or places for those folks who work in Chapel Hill to live close to their work so they can bike or walk or both. I propose we do both. We build enough housing for some of the people that will need to come here as we grow. We're building 29 new operating rooms. We're expanding launch. We're doing a lot of exciting things. And we also need to bring to Chapel Hill some of the people who work here. So we need to go up. We need some height. We need some density. And we've made progress with that. And I think we need it in specific areas of town so that we can protect some of our neighborhoods and definitely our trees. We also need to really work on transportation, on alternative transportation. Any bikes have been mentioned. I was co-chair of the transportation subcommittee, the Getting Around subcommittee of Chapel Hill 2020, worked very hard on implementing that plan. I'm the liaison to our Transportation and Connectivity Board. I'm committed to that and to expanding public transportation, building the BRT, bus rapid transit, and putting in more greenways, connecting the greenways we have so that people don't have to get on the congested roads, and of course light rail so that people can get out of their cars. Thank you.
Candidate Rachel Shavitz.
There we go. I think these are all excellent goals, and here are some of my ideas for practical actions that can help us make progress toward achieving some of them. First, protecting and enhancing our distinctive characteristics. I believe the best way to do that is just to skip right ahead to goal number 3 and require high standards for new development. We need to approach development holistically, and this means being very thoughtful about what dense development means in terms of number 2, traffic. So these things are all connected, as my colleagues have mentioned. I believe that development is necessary to accommodate our expected growth. But we need to develop in a way that allows us to plan strategically for the future. That means thinking ahead about where the bike paths and pedestrian paths will be before approving the building, looking ahead to transit options of the future, and staying true to our values as a community. The specific action I would advocate for is revision and enforcement of our form-based code. Although well-intended, the current form-based code is not specific or clear enough. The Berkshire building over by Whole Foods is the first product to come from these new standards, and it's severely lacking in connectivity. It does not add green space. It is not green construction. It's an eyesore. It cuts off the business district from one side to the other. I have chatted with these business owners. Jeff, who owns Great Harvest Bakery, used to get foot traffic from Whole Foods. Now he doesn't anymore. Cecilia, who inherited the Oriental Tailor from her mom, a business that's been in Chapel Hill for generations, might have to leave because her rents are so high. I want development, I want to grow, but not at the expense of our local business owners. Without revising the code, we'll continue to lose our characteristic, our distinctive local businesses that make this town so special. We'll get the buildings developers want, not the buildings we want. This also relates to goal number 4, because if the rents are driven up and the local businesses are driven out, who do you think is going to replace them? I can promise it's not going to be more affordable options. Definitely not. We have to get real about thinking about how all of these things connect and making a comprehensive strategy. So when we get to affordability, that's multi-pronged. That's housing, that's transit, that's commercial, retail, and office space. If we want to support new innovative businesses, we have to have affordable office space for them to get their feet wet and try setting up shop here in Chapel Hill. We want a space where our students can come and work after graduation, not export them out where the businesses might go. I love Pam's description of a comprehensive strategic plan for affordable housing. That makes my heart feel good because I've spoken with folks at Empowerment and Habitat and Community Home Trust. I know the good work they're doing, and I know the best way we can help them is having a comprehensive, holistic plan with benchmarks, with goals, long and short term, that help them all achieve the same goals we have. Thank you.
Candidate Carl Schuler.
So of the 5 questions, I will focus on 1 and 5, but they're all interrelated, and we've acknowledged that this evening. Protecting and enhancing the town of Chapel Hill first comes with an understanding. Yes, there is more growth that is coming about. You want to protect the characteristics, and the chief export that we know from this town, right, is education and healthcare. We also know that with a town of 59,000 plus a student body of mid-20s that are here, combined with the traffic that you see of people in Chapel Hill, about 30,000 are commuting out to RTP and 30,000 are commuting into Chapel Hill from RTP and surrounding areas. So we need to have it that we can have a planned process for, as what others have said, thinking smarter, building upon density, looking at more affordable options with smaller housing units that you might see along Homestead Road. But the big concern is, how do you do these things and be fiscally smart about what's going on? Now, one thing's for sure, that the will of the people here in Chapel Hill have it that they do support sales tax increases, that they do support bond issues when that comes up, and that ties in very well to the Chapel Hill 2020 process. What I am looking at, too, is having much more focus on where money is spending. So when it comes to critical questions, you can come and ask any of the town council members, the mayor, and definitely find that on the website. These would be areas that I would be looking at. As far as reducing traffic, that will come both with innovation and time. If this light rail system does come through, and when that does, you are going to have an opportunity for building a tremendous amount of dense growth right near the platforms. As far as vehicular traffic, you know, and it's an acknowledgement. I mean, I think most of us drove here this evening, given the weather. Yeah, most drove. But if you had an organized process where not only during core hours that you had a tight busing route, but after hours, so I'm talking about after 5 in the evening and on weekends, because I have been I do ride the bus, I do ride Triangle Transit, and man, I am stuck for an hour until the next bus comes. That's something that we can work on. By having a better system, you will reduce traffic and congestion.
And candidate Karen Stegman.
Thank you. Chapel Hill has always been a town where all are welcome, but a growing lack of affordability is jeopardizing this value. As Chapel Hill becomes an increasingly expensive place to live, work, travel, operate a business, make art, we risk losing the very character we've always cherished as a community, that of inclusivity. This concern cuts across all 5 of these very important points that CHALT has brought up, but I'll respond more specifically to question number 3 and number 1. High standards is a subjective term. We probably will all define that a little bit differently in this room, but as a council member, I can tell you what I would prioritize for new development. It will meet the following criteria. It expands our stock of affordable housing, especially prioritizing rentals and all income levels. It will have easy access to transit, including location and schedule, and options for biking or walking, as my colleagues have talked about. It'll meet the highest environmental standards, protecting water quality, addressing stormwater concerns, preserving trees, and so on. And it will be aligned with our town strategies. We've put a lot of work into our Vision 2020, the Rosemary Guide, Rosemary Street Redevelopment Guide, and we need to stick with those and follow what we've agreed to as a community and protect neighborhoods such as Northside, Elkin Hills, and Morgan Creek. And the development, regardless of what it is, will be developed using a process that maximizes community input, especially from those who are most impacted by that new development. I'll also speak to number 1 in terms of the college town characteristics. To me, as I've said, the most important characteristic of our town is our commitment to equity and inclusivity. And in order to retain this character, we need to have a robust economy that reduces the tax burden and generates more revenue to meet some of our important goals for our town. And in a college town like ours, that means continuing to invest in a lively, dynamic, vibrant downtown, which draws residents and guests of all ages. And to do this, I'll continue to support the Downtown Partnership, which has been doing an excellent job of bringing people back down to downtown through arts and activities and events that engage people of all ages. I'll also continue to invest in efforts to develop the innovation hub that has been started under the current council. And I will also investigate opportunities for tax incentives to attract and retain locally owned businesses, including an equity plan for minority-owned businesses, so our downtown reflects and attracts our town's diverse population. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to all of you. We are going to move on to the time for audience participation. You will see up here, we're going to have a queue right up here where we can ask questions. And again, I'm going to just briefly review. The question will be addressed to a particular candidate or incumbent. You will have 2 minutes. Then there can be up to 2 45-second follow-ups. Just acknowledge if you would like to follow up. And I'll try to keep some sort of a sense of order among that to try to balance the best to give equal participation among all or as close to it as I possibly can. Again, each candidate that's up here will receive a question. And so as we form our queue, we're going to make sure that that happens. Okay? Does everybody understand? Especially you all. All right. Okay. Not everybody at once, though, over here. Come on, huh?
My name is Art Werner, and this is to Council Member Rhea Palmer. And this is related, I guess, to number 5 and 2. I'd like you to explain the rationale for the light rail, which doesn't go through any place in Chapel Hill where anybody lives, but sort of as a shuttle between UNC hospitals and Duke. How's that financially responsible, and how is it going to help traffic in Chapel Hill?
How many hours do we have? No, I'm sorry. How much time do I have for this?
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. I think it is financially responsible because it invests our tax dollars to leverage billions of federal, well, over $1 billion in federal funds and the community surrounding us to contribute to alleviate the congestion in Chapel Hill. We have over 5,000 employees at the University Hospital. We have several thousand at UNC that commute every day, work shifts that are predictable, and that the university cannot park. We have buses coming in every 39 seconds, I believe it is. Ed probably knows the exact number of seconds, but every few seconds pulling into UNC, and we cannot add any more buses. So if we want to get people out of cars and we want to be responsible citizens and stewards of the earth, we have to invest in other modes of transportation. I have read through reams of the studies for the federal government to approve this project. It had to pass so many hurdles. And for it to have the rating it has, and for us to get the money we're going to get, I believe it is not just feasible, it's something that if we don't do it, there's a huge cost that our children and grandchildren will have to pay for our lack of vision. So that's why I support light rail.
Thank you. Is there anybody that would like to also weigh in on the light rail project as a follow-up? If you would like to, raise your hand, please.
Well, I think there is a misunderstanding over here, Maria. From my reading of the what is going on with the federal funding, it is said that even though the current light rail project has entered into the engineering and the planning phase, but it is written specifically that that is a no guarantee for the federal money, which means that the 50% of the 3.3 billion funds that are needed for the light rail is not settled at this time.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to follow up on the question of, please?
Sure, I'll jump into that. So, you know, when you're deciding how to go about using funds, I think this is a collaborative effort. Yes, you do have incentive from federal sources, but this is something that really needs to be dealt with in a forum involving the town manager and other departments and commissions within the town's purview. That, in conjunction with working in the regional area, I think that you can come up with some information that would be helpful. But I agree that is a limited route. You need to have, and to correct problems with public transportation as it is right now, starting with the buses, having more runs and more options for commuters.
Thank you. Another question will be coming.
I'm Eunice Brock. I've lived here for 60 years, and I've seen this town go from a beautiful, lovely, tree-laden homes and streets to a form-based code buildings. My question is, what are you going to do to change the form-based code, which is built nothing but ugly buildings, no trees are by them, no shrubs, no anything but ugly garages, and they're very poorly built. If there's a fire, it's stick-built on the top, on one floor, they'll burn up along with the people.
Who would we like to address this question?
H1.
Okay. we can't do that.
Well, why can't each one speak to the worst problem we have?
Well, because I believe that would take up all the rest of our time, and we all agree to the ground rules.
Well, I mean, this is a real problem in the town, but I'll address it to Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Aha, thank you, Eunice. Thank you for that question. I'm happy to answer it. So what will I do to fix form-based code? I will revise it. And I will make sure we stick to it once we've got it in place. So form-based code is designed to streamline the process, make it easier for development to get approved. That requires us to be really clear about that streamlining process, because once you check off the things on that process, there's no more chance for us to say what we want. That is the list of what we want. So it has to be clear. It has to be enforceable. Now, if we want things from a developer, we got to negotiate for those things. I'm not a business leader, but I know that much about negotiation. So the form-based code should be this. And then if you want another floor, okay, you're going to give me this. And if you want another floor on top of that, you're going to give me this. We can't give this and then hope that we're going to get the things we want. We have to give this and negotiate from there. So our current form-based code is giving away the farm. We have to be real about it, dig into it, and revise it. Then we have to stick to it. When folks come to us and say, I can't give you the affordable units I said I was going to give you because the numbers don't make sense, we have to not give in and say, actually, this is our code. This is what we're going to stick to. And if that doesn't work for you, we can go back, but we're not going to change it hither and yon going forward. Then we lose our power as negotiators. Again, I'm not a business leader, but I do know that much about negotiation. If we're wishy-washy from the beginning, everyone who comes behind knows we're wishy-washy. They're not going to stick to what we give them either. Thank you.
I would like to give a chance for two 45-second follow-ups to anybody that would like to jump in. But remember, if you did follow up last time, wait for a next turn. I think I saw Karen's hand.
Thank you for that question. This is obviously a very important topic and very big on people's minds. A couple things to say, I think, about Ephesus Fordham. That area, I think it's good to remember what the intent of the code in the first place was. I agree, I'll say right up front, it needs changing. I'm glad the council's already working on that. It would have been nice if it had been a little sooner, I think, but I'm glad to see they're already working on improving walkability and in some environmental concerns. Now I can't already be out of time. A great thing about it is the development of affordable housing that's taking place in Ephesus Fordham, 149 permanent units. Rental units are being added, which is fantastic. I want to keep talking. I have more to say.
There may be more to say.
Talk to me later.
And I see Ed, and I saw Alan too. I saw Ed first. I'll get you next time out.
Okay. I am the one council member left standing who did not vote to rezone the 190 or so acres of Ephesus Fordham. I did vote to apply the form-based code to where the DHIC project is coming out of the ground. I'd say if I had my niece drive yesterday by DHIC as opposed down Elliott Road, she would not have said it looks like something out of the Bronx or the Soviet Union. That was a seriously flawed code unless we knew what we got getting in, and with DHIC we had commitments in public as to what they were going to build. I'd like to talk about this more. Thank you.
That 45 seconds is coming fast, and I guess these mics get a little close. We've all, I think, had that happen a little bit. Next question, please. Oh, no, we have two follow-ups for each one. That's the way it works. We will come to you again, and especially if it's a question based on code and development, I'll make sure that I get to you. You're welcome.
Hello. Does this work? I'm Elizabeth, and I've come here tonight as a mother. 2 sentences, that's really tough. Councilwoman Palmer, this one's for you. Oh, we can't do more than one direct? What's that? Oh, let's do it. Let's do it, okay? I'm coming here as a mom. This one I'm going to put out there for any moms that would like to respond. So I just want some of the moms on the council to kind of talk to me about a mother's equal right to participate in public service, and that 2 of the candidates tonight especially have talked about and proudly and openly about their roles as mothers and coming on to council, because in the past there has been comments put out there about being too busy with having children to serve. So I guess Karen and Rachel, those questions are for you.
I see both Pam and Karen are willing to answer this one. To me, it was directed to moms, so yeah. Anybody, please, Pam, if you would like.
Well, I'll start with this. I am a mom, 4 kids, and some extras that hang around a lot. And I've been serving in public service with young children I've been here 31 years, and I started right off getting involved in, when I took a nursing baby to Parks and Rec. I really, really want moms of young kids. I want fathers of young kids. I want anyone who wants to be involved in public service to have those opportunities and be respected for being part of it. Raising children is hard, but we have a great community to raise kids in. And I want to say that all are welcome to the table, all are welcome for their input, all are welcome at anything we do. You are just as much part of the community as anyone else is. And having raised children here, it's amazing how you do get intertwined into the community in many, many different ways that are very positive and enriching. And I'll be honest with you, it's a great role model for your kids. All my kids vote, or get them. All my kids do community service because that's who we are. And so I think moms and dads set a great example for the young people of our community. And I know that's sort of where you want to go, but I will tell you, we've been doing town hall field trips to town hall and having mock meetings with the students, the 3rd graders who are studying local government. We started a series of field trips here. It is amazing what these kids know and what they want to know and how they want to be involved. And it's amazing to watch their parental chaperones say, I never knew. So we want to encourage everyone to feel respected and welcome and part of this community.
Please.
So thank you for the question. I believe there are many barriers to service, and of course, economic barriers are huge, and young people who are trying to raise a family. And my first service, I got paid $15 a day to serve on the State Board of Education, and it cost me $30 in babysitters. So I know it's a sacrifice for some folks. I don't think that it should be that way, and I think we can do better providing babysitting services, perhaps for some of our volunteer boards, and subsidizing some of the costs. But also, I believe that my petitioning the council for parental leave and the council voting to give workers paid parental leave shows the commitment I have to families. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to follow up on that? We have time for one more 45-second follow-up if anybody else would like to. Okay.
Thanks for the question. I'm not sure where that comment came from, that somebody has implied that you couldn't serve as a parent. I'm a mom of a 8-year-old and 11-year-old, and I also work full time. And one of the best parts about running for council, along with meeting with you all of you, is the role model that I am, what I'm modeling for my daughter, who's a 6th grader, and she is so excited, and she goes out and canvasses with me and gives speeches at my candidate parties, and everybody wishes they could vote for her instead of me because she's so amazing. So it's an amazing experience, and all the better as a parent, I would say.
Yeah, my name is Chungwan. I'd like to ask a home being a question, and also this question is also for other candidates to think about. Home being, I like your ideas of promoting arts and the arts and the culture program to promote the creativity and also to preserve our characteristics of our beautiful town. And also advocate the tax base, diversify the tax base by helping those innovative and startup business. So can you elaborate your opinions and how these two connect together and how to make our communities sustainable and bring our money and use it wisely? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think that's a very big question, and it's a it's a hybrid question that really that touched on various aspects of that what I'm trying to do. Well, I think that when we talk about the cultural and arts programs, a lot of times that people think that these are the programs that are going to only spend the town's tax revenue. But I believe that is outdated thinking. If you look at the data from, I think is from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, there is a report by the Philadelphia Arts Council, and they show that their arts and the cultural program actually is a $3 billion economic engine. And if we just look locally, we also see that like Durham, their economy revival in the past few years, I think as a big part is contributed to its very vibrant arts and cultural scene. And I actually know several artists that they moving from Chapel Hill to Durham because they have this special programs that promote arts and cultures in Durham. So we would like to have more of those arts and cultural programs in Chapel Hill. And we know that they will be well received by our community, as we have seen in many of the arts programs that have been well attended, have very warm accepted by our community. So, and also for the launch program, we have seen that has been contributing significantly to our town's startup programs, and so that is something that we can promote in our if I'm elected to the council as well.
Thank you. Follow-ups? No? Yes, please.
So, I for one am eager to see the results of the 12-month pilot study of the light industry conditioning zoning districts, which I think is about to be or has been renamed Enterprise Zone. I think if the results of that study are favorable, I think that could present a good model for us to possibly replicate in other parts of town. And I talk about the district because it is meant to create more office space as well as light industry. And we want to be expanding our commercial tax base and easing the burden on our homeowners.
Thank you. And I saw Rachel's hand too.
Thank
Did you want to take this?
I'd love to, yeah. I love this question about the arts as what it can contribute. I see the arts as illustrating culture, celebrating culture, and educating others about culture. So as a town that's interested in celebrating the diversity of our residents, this is the best way to get at that, to celebrate it, to illustrate it, and to educate others about it. But it's not just holding hands and singing songs. This is also a way to drive folks to our town, to drive tourism, to bring people into our downtown, to stay in our hotels, go to our businesses, drink coffee from our coffee shops, and really contribute to building the kind of Chapel Hill that is inclusive and celebrating its diversity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Sedor. I'm a resident of Chapel Hill for 26 years. I'd like to follow up on Ms. Brock's mission to get all the council members to get on the record regarding the form-based code. So I'd like to address my question to Maria Palmer. What
Councilperson or each council candidate or mayoral candidate will get one question before we are allowed to ask a second question individually of a council member. That's the rules that we came up with at the beginning.
So who's left?
Raise your hand if you haven't been at, and I know somebody that definitely wants to talk about form-based code right there.
Who else? Only one person's left?
No. I think Carl and Alan would both like to address this question.
Okay.
I know that Alan earlier
Okay.
expressed that he wanted to address this. And I think that you would be due for a follow-up if you wanted to do it that way. Would you be agreeable to that?
Let me address it to Carl then.
Sure. Here we go.
What specific
Yes, sir.
what specific 3 changes to the Ephesus Fordham form-based code would you support and why?
Well, I'll speak to the changes that I would have, but I'll also speak in general first. Right now, with the land use management ordinance, it is an awfully complicated piece of a document. And I know from time on the Board of Adjustment, we're spending time in minutes going into the half hour having Mr. Carpenos, the town attorney, interpret what the LUMO or land use management ordinance has to say. So in part in doing this revision, I would think that it would be in a process to make it much easier to get the input from various commissions like the CDC and the Planning Commission to be able to bring back comments so that you can have better and more functional form-based code. As far as for Blue Hill, which now, right, that's what it's known as, is Blue Hill, not Ephesus Fordham. I think a couple of things to look at. You're going to have to look at the heights of buildings. And if I can just ask with the time here, tell me you wanted the 3 points of what I would change. Is that right? Okay. So I would look at that. At the building heights, that would be one area. I would also be looking at the functionality and for housing to look at both affordable owner-occupied housing, which we do have, but also then for renting or renters and having affordability there. Now that can go into a separate or follow-up question, but those would be areas that I would look at. You'd want to have a code that is usable, it's tangible, people have meaning and can make interpretations so that you don't have the problems that you have seen to date. And you're looking at council talking about Amity Station right now. Should it be 7 feet or 7 stories, 6 stories? These things would like to address.
Okay, first I'm going to go to Alan and then I'm going to go to Ed.
In terms of 3 specific changes, one would be to modify the height limits down from 7. I mean, there's a form-based code out in Asheville that I think we can take some good things from. One of the provisions of that code is that they've split basically their district, the area where the form-based code applies to, into 7 different zoning areas. So, I mean, I would look at a height limit of between 3 and 5 stories. Another change is having open space type. That's also something that the Asheville form-based code requires. But basically, this would be space designated for green. We're talking about bike paths. We're talking about parks, so that we can have that green space to absorb some of the stormwater that's coming in. Thirdly, making sure to have scale sensitive to adjacent neighborhoods. So, the way that the election building looks, it's a harsh contrast to the neighboring houses. So.
Thank you.
Well, I ran myself out of time a while back, didn't talk about high development standards. And instead of specifics, I'm going to talk about what you as a community can do in the next 3 years as we do what's being called a rewriting of the LUMO. I'll call it the remaking of the LUMO, and that is your best chance to tackle the form-based code in the context of the whole ordinance. And it should be item 1, actually, based on the community concern. It's certainly my concern. And I think I'm glad to have heard specifics from Carl and from Alan. I agree with both. The code, as we came to us first, the reason I did vote for the rezoning, did not vote for the rezoning, is because it had so few specifics in it overall. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Ann Lofton. I live in the Elkin Hills neighborhood in Chapel Hill. My question is to Alan Boincy. I realize this isn't your particular area of expertise, but we often hear that the town and the university are committed to protecting the environment and preserving open space and green space. And as you may know, there's a new appointment of the Parks and Rec director to become a sort of steward of green space and open space for the town. That being said, I would like to know whether you support the current proposal by the town and the university to build a municipal services center on the wooded land that separates the north side of the Elkin Hills neighborhood from Estes Drive Extension. And if you're not familiar with this proposal, I'd be glad to say a few words about it.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Actually, could you say a few words about it? I am less
please be
familiar.
very brief if you can.
I will be very brief. The town and the university have embarked on a tentative agreement, or at least have expressed a desire to build a municipal services center on a piece of land that runs along the backyards of many of the people in Elkin Hills. They want to put, I believe, police, fire, emergency, and other things along there. And some of us who live in Elkin Hills obviously would prefer that we protect the remaining open space that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll first start off by saying that, my kind of natural foundational principles as a civil rights lawyer is that I am partial to folks, neighborhoods that stand to be adversely impacted by any, kind of decision that's made by a town government. So with regards to Elkins, I do want to do my due diligence before, I give you how I would come down on it. But from what you've told me, I really want to be listening to the neighborhood, and the concerns, especially about the ongoing about stormwater. If we develop in that area, we're going to have more impervious surfaces. We're going to have more pavement, sidewalks, things that are not conducive to alleviating flooding problems. So, what I can say now is that I want to find out more information, but from what you've told me, I am partial to that neighborhood and their concerns about the green space not being there.
Thank you. Follow-ups, please.
I agree with the comment, Alan Boincy. I too have served on the Parks and Rec Commission. I served 2 terms on there. We built the library, we built Southern Village Community Park, and we also built aquatic center. I believe this is that growth and change is going to come. I realize that's your neighborhood, but where would we put a police station? As you know well, the police station is really actually sitting on top of a landfill, and we need to do something to change that environment, to move out in some other area and some other properties. I think we really need to take a really good look at it. And of course, you are one of the citizens of that community, so that we can really come up with a plan that won't affect the residents as much.
Thank you. And one more follow-up?
As someone who is familiar with the project and I understand the neighborhood's concerns, that's why we've been holding meetings and trying to work together to be the best possible neighbors to the neighborhood by looking at a 100-foot buffer, mitigating the stormwater there, consolidating our town services so that we open up other opportunities for other places by bringing the Parks and Rec administration. We become more efficient as a town. It is on a major corridor. And again, it's a smaller building and trying to work really hard to be, I think we would be the best neighbors possible in that kind of situation. We do need a new police station. It is on a coal ash site. The building is in woeful disrepair. And partnering with UNC allows us to maximize our resources as they are only charging us $1 for the land.
Thank you.
Is the floor open again?
No, I believe that Ed hasn't fielded a question yet. I believe that Eugene hasn't fielded a question yet. And I don't think Karen has either.
I'll direct my question to Karen Stegman. I've heard a lot of talk about affordable housing. Simple question: where, if you had your choice, would you develop it, and how would you go about developing it?
Well, I'm happy to say that there's a lot of affordable housing being developed right now that I'm really excited about. And I think it's really great that our town is taking a variety of approaches to affordable housing. There's not a one-size-fits-all. We have a real crisis of affordable housing, especially rental, and especially under the 60% AMI. And so it's going to take a lot of different strategies to even start to meet the need we have in this town. So our inclusionary zoning approach is one tactic. Sometimes it works better than others. It's not the only one. I think partnership is critical. Some folks have already talked about some of it, but partnering with the Jackson Center, with the Community Home Trust, with on and on, CASA, and the other partners who are experts in this and bring different approaches, even Pee Wee Homes, who's starting to bring tiny houses to help with our homeless population or folks at risk of homelessness. I think all of these approaches are critical, and it includes collaboration with the county, with Carborough, with UNC Healthcare. I think there's different types of housing for different purposes. People have talked a lot about what we call workforce housing. That's important too, and I think that's where collaboration, for instance, with UNC Healthcare to help make sure all of their workers from every level, from doctors down to housekeepers, can live here if they want to live here. And that requires partnership, it requires subsidy, and working with those entities like UNC Healthcare who have a vested interest. It's really in their best interest to invest, and not just as sort of charity and do-gooding, but it's a business interest there. So I think all of those, and taking as full advantage of federal low-income housing tax credits. The town has limited resources, so we have to find those resources elsewhere.
Thank you. Does anybody else like to, Maria?
Sure. I think one great thing about our inclusionary zoning is that wherever we build, we are going to put some affordable housing if it's ownership that we're building. So I believe in having affordable housing all over town, not concentrating people in one area, but also a factor in affordability is transportation. So for folks to, one thing is to get somebody into an affordable home to rent or buy, but then if they can't get to work, they can't live there. So I believe we should follow the example of Boulder, which we visited, and in our station areas, build affordable housing that will connect people with transportation.
Thank you. Anybody else? I see.
Well, I think that for affordable housing, we also need this holistic approach that to approach that how to solve, because the bigger problem is the affordability of this town. It's not only the housing and also the transit. For the people that who found it's too expensive and difficult to afford in this town, it's also the transit. Like, how are they going to move from one place to another place? Whether or not there's easy accessible places for them to shop for grocery in the pharmacies. So I think that we need to build the community that is for a mixed use. It's easy for people to not only live here, and also they can have access to the vital shopping centers and the facilities that they need.
Thank you.
This question's for Ed I'm Erin. I'm a resident of Chapel Hill. Doesn't matter how long I've lived here. This is for Ed and the incumbents if there's time. Can you please speak to a vote cast or policy stance that you regret or would reverse if given the chance, and what changed your mind?
We get asked that. Actually, I'd have to go back a lot of years. I'm not sure I want to go back that far, because I'm, a nice way to put it is thoughtful, and so I think real hard about how I'm going to vote. There are things that I voted against that probably people in this room wanted me to vote against that I could have voted for. I could have voted for Obi Creek because it was a good development agreement process that I asked for. I asked for that particular long, drawn-out process. It wasn't ready to pass, in my view, so I voted against it, and I may regret, not voting for it. It seemed a reasonable thing to do for a lot of people to vote, for instance, to apply the form-based code to 190 acres. I didn't. A couple of the rest of us didn't. These are very, 6 very reasonable people who voted to apply it to that area. So, I mean, I'm saying I voted no on them, but in some ways I may regret not voting for them. But I have a lot of years of votes, and you want me to go back 15 years or so, I can think of them, but I can't. I mean, I generally, particularly in the last couple of years, thanks to Mayor Pam, we have been, as a council, very deliberate about our votes, and we really don't end up regretting them at that point. We may regret that we took a long time doing them, but that's what we do. If that's a non-answer, that's a non-answer, but that's how I choose to answer it. I think really hard before I vote. I don't vote impulsively at all.
Thank you. Carl?
I will speak, but a point of clarification. Were there any other incumbents that you wanted to hear from, Aaron? Or
She asked.
good.
She asked.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you all willing to field?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, thank you. It's an interesting question. I've been sitting here thinking while we're trying to figure it out. I spent a lot of time doing research before we have the council meetings and making phone calls and figuring out, and I don't know that I feel like I voted something I would take back. I wish we could have moved faster on some of the things. I wish I could undo a few things that were done before I came into office, and spent a lot of time trying to fix things, tweak things, especially the form-based code we talked about, which we've learned a lot about, tweaked a bit, but we're still not there yet. But I'm generally felt pretty good. I listened to a lot of input. We get a lot of community input on a lot of items that are controversial. So to this point, I don't know that I would have. I'm trying to find one. If I do, I'll email you because I'm trying to think of it.
Thank you. Maria Palmer?
I regret voting with the majority when I felt that I couldn't support something because I was the only one against it. And over the years, I realized I owe it to myself and my constituency to always vote my conscience. So a couple of times there have been things that were going to pass and that in private people had said to me, yeah, that's a bad idea, but when we had the votes, we go along so as to present a united front because it is the council's decision, and I respect that. And anytime the council votes for something, I'm going to defend it and stand by it. But I have tried, especially in the last year, to always vote my conscience.
Thank you.
I hope everyone will just vote the way they feel. I don't think anyone should go along just because the majority seems to feel that way. I don't want us to be that kind of town, sorry.
All right. So we got another question coming up. The mayoral candidates. Let's take one for Eugene, and will you go right after her? Are you willing to do that?
Sure.
Okay, great. Then I can open up the floor and make it.
As long as the floor opens up.
It will, I promise. I promise. Eugene, this is.
So I'm Beth Mueller, and I was on the CDC when the form-based code came through, but that's not what my question is about. But I would like for you, the council, everyone, to think about the word setback and lean on your CDC because they can help you a great deal in that area. Now, here's the question for the mayor candidates. What will you do to help Chapel Hill reach the 2020 climate and energy targets?
So I'm gonna we're gonna go with our 2 minutes here to Eugene Ferrara and then 45 seconds to Pam Heminger and then move on to the open part of it if that's okay with the rest of the group. Is that okay with the rest of the group? Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much for the question. I think to address the energy situation here in Chapel Hill is that we need to have those energy screens put up around town that will help eliminate. It also save green space. So I think when we talk about trying to make it better, is that we do it by creating space for those panels to save energy, and also again, when we do that, we help create green space to save, to protect our environment. I think that is a real critical point there, is protecting the environment with the energy saving process that they use today with the shields.
Thank you.
So I signed on to the Paris Accord with the Pact of Mayors. I get the benefit of hearing all the good things going on. The National Mayors Conference, we had an innovation conference. I went to that to learn more about what we could be doing. I met today actually with Duke Energy to bring those ideas back to say what kinds of things can we be doing more with electric cars, electric buses, solar rooftops, reducing our carbon footprint, replacing all of our lights in town with LEDs. We have some areas we've been working on small parts. How do we make it bigger? How do we encourage more solar? I've actually been talking to developers about this solar roof business because several towns require it. We have a lot more we can be doing. We need to educate our own public. We need to be able to be creative and innovative about all this, and there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of data and examples out there from us to pull from. So I'm excited about the opportunities coming forward.
Thank you, both of you. The floor is open, so please address your questions to whoever you would like to ask. Same format. Oh, yeah, please. Well, the floor is still open for it's still right.
My question is about the pressure of population growth, which is happening all over the state, but in particular this area as well. And so I would like the mayor to address the problem of sprawl and how we stop it.
Okay,
how
so
we
I think that
control
was directed
sprawl.
to Pam Heminger.
Is 2 minutes the rule?
Yeah, we're going to stick with 2 minutes, 45 second for
Okay.
follow-ups. And so if you want to get in on follow-ups, please, by all means.
Okay,
But
so the
start with
state
Pam.
is growing, and I will say that North Carolina's reached an interesting point in its history where the metropolitan population has exceeded the rural population for the first time in North Carolina's history, especially in our region. The growth projections for our region are staggering, but other communities outside of ours are growing faster in population because we have implemented a rural buffer around our community and an urban services boundary. So we're not going to be sprawling. We don't have the authority or the desire to do so. We are bound by our own rules and by some physical limitations, which are great. So that means we build more densely. And how do you plan for that growth instead of just letting it happen to you is the whole point of what your governing body is supposed to be doing. We're supposed to help figure out the best ways forward to retain our value system that we want in our community of inclusiveness, places for everyone, while still trying to accommodate this growth. It's here, it's pressureful, it's causing the traffic, and I will tell you, Cary got ranked in the top 10 places to live in the country, and it is the worst sprawl environment you've ever seen. We have other things going on here with growth that have caused significant issues for our community, that being stormwater runoff, traffic congestion, and the housing costs, the land prices, the cost of doing business here. All that growth pressure is what we struggle with as mayors, and we talk as a region as mayors getting together about how we work together for these growth issues. They're complicated, and they have consequences of the choices you made years past, and they have it going forward. So it is the thing we deal with, and I do struggle very hard with balancing that growth with our value system, with the environment we live in. Climate change is real. The things we do affect us for the long term and affect future generations.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to sprawl and development? Okay. Anybody else want to get on the queue? Please.
So it's a great question. I mean, we do have limited space. About 98% of land in Chapel Hill proper has already been built upon. And we do have the rural buffer that does restrict any kind of desire to sprawl, and we don't have that desire to sprawl. One thing, I mean, it's going to require a creative approach, but one thing that I really would like to do is to re-engage with St. Paul's Church. They have proposed a St. Paul's Village. It would be at the intersection of Purefoy and Rogers Road, but I want to see what he's thinking in that regard.
Thank you. Please.
I think when we talk about growth, again, growth is going to happen, change is going to happen, and I think we have to look at innovative ways and creative ways. How can we slow the growth down until we can do some other things to meet the standards of Chapel Hill? Chapel Hill is going out as far as it can go, but now we have to think about how do we go up to create space to help apartments talked about early on, rather than building these humongous apartment buildings overshadowing Chapel Hill, that we build small houses for living families, 1 and 2 bedrooms. And I think that would be a way to help this situation with growth, slow down in our thinking and how we go about the process of growth.
Thank you.
Is Maria a person I could ask a question?
Yes, the floor is open. Floor is open.
I'm asking this for Randy Dancy. What do you see, Maria, as the role of town leadership on the council in K through 12 educational outcomes? And how would you partner?
I appreciate that question. I think we need to partner. One thing we have tried in town council, for example, is offering a clinic for our employees, and we have seen wonderful health outcomes. And I think we need to partner with the schools to offer clinics in the schools, especially low-income families that cannot afford the time or the as a pastor, I had to take children to get vaccinations because they were being kicked out of school the first 10 days. Their parents couldn't access the services. And children and parents miss work and school, and I think we can address that together. We've partnered with the school system to offer a first responders academy that will open this year, which is fantastic for kids who need skills that will get them jobs coming out. And we need vocational technical education that can engage kids who switch off because all we talk about in the schools is 4-year colleges sometimes. And so I believe we can partner with the school board. We have some awesome people that I voted for and promoted on the school board, and I think that they are ready and willing to cooperate, and I know our mayor is too. So I think transportation is an issue we also need to cooperate with. Somebody who has just moved here from Europe, from Germany, asked me, "Is my child's school ID good for free bus passes?" And I explained at Southern Village, yes, at the concert this weekend, and I explained that our buses are free, which was a surprise and very excited. And then we talked about using public transportation to move children. So there's so many things we can do, and thank you for that question.
Thank you. I see Rachel's hand and then Hongbin. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. I have a lot of great ideas about how council can help support our schools. I'm really excited by our new superintendent. She's coming from Asheville, and they have done some amazing work on building workforce housing for teachers. I think this is an amazing way that the council can help support our teachers, bring in new teachers, and support our existing teachers, making it easier for them to work in Chapel Hill by helping them live in Chapel Hill. I also think it would be really useful for us to provide more affordable after-school care and summer camp options for our children here in Chapel Hill. This could be through Parks and Rec. It could be a direct result of what council does, and it will help us get our kids equal access to those enrichment after-school programs and summer programs that are going to help close that equity gap that we see in our schools and help our teachers do their jobs during the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Hongbin.
Okay, well, I think there are many, like Rachel said, there are many aspects that we can do to help our K-12 education. One of them, when I was having the discussion with Superintendent Dr. Baldwin, she mentioned that the one thing that she felt very surprised when she arrived in Chapel Hill Carrboro School District is, given its reputation as the #1 school district in the state, she's surprised to see the condition of our facilities, of our schools. So I think that the town needs to do more to support the renovation projects that is going on around the school. And second, I think the education system in the new economy has changed, that it's not enough for the children to just go to the school and passing the exams. And now we are working on this project-based and community-based learning. So we need to encourage this entrepreneurship mindset in our public school education, and I think the town can do a lot to help with that.
Thank you. We've got time for 3 more questions, and coincidentally, we have 3 more people lined up, but I bet that's because somebody's over there watching that queue.
Hello, my name is Andrea Rohrbacher, and I'd like to address this question to candidate Stegman. I want to talk about transit. There is a huge deficiency that I perceive with respect to transit on weekends. The buses just do not run on Sundays, limited service on Saturdays. Given the promotion of the cultural activities that take place in Chapel Hill, such as events at Memorial Hall, Festival, other things that take place downtown, how would you handle providing better transportation options for people that, for some reason, are unable to drive?
Thank you, Andrea. That's a great question, and I've heard that from others as well. I think that's a really important point, and you're right. As we create more opportunities and activities and events for where we are trying to bring people together and build community and bring them downtown, they have to be able to get there. And it's also an equity issue for people who can't drive, who can't afford a car or other reasons are unable to get around town. We have to do better. I absolutely agree. I think that we need to continue to invest not only more resources in our local transit, but I think we can do a better job of planning how we're using those resources. I think that the town could do more in terms of understanding how our current buses are used when and where the greatest needs are, and have a more flexible schedule. I think evenings and weekends are absolutely critical. and we need to add to the current systems. And I know we're going through a new development of a comprehensive transit plan, not just in Chapel Hill, but within the county and the region, and that needs to be a critical part of that planning for the future.
Thank you. I see Ed's hand, and then I want to look for anybody else who would like to take this, and Mayor Heminger. Okay.
Do this quickly. I brought this up earlier. We have a short-range transit plan process starting same time as Orange County is doing one, same time as Durham is doing one, same time as Go Triangle is doing one, same consultant, actually. And having been at the table now for 9 budget seasons with UNC and Carborough for the transit budgeting and transit scheduling are a couple of really complicated and challenging things. And this short-range transit plan really needs all the good, clear thinking it can come up with, you people can come up with. So please participate, watch for public notices of it.
It's a great question. There's a lot of creative things going on in other communities that we're learning about and asking questions about. Shared Uber pooling. It costs about $90 an hour to run one of our town buses. So that's a lot of Ubering that can go on. And not that particular company, but that kind of concept to run smaller vehicles, smaller collaborative things that are integrated into our system that run more frequently, making sure we understand how to integrate our planning of events to bringing people to where they need to go. I've met with the trolley groups too. They are here figuring out if there's a better budget ways to run things that are specifically for weekends and evening timeframes that don't cost quite as much to run as a bus system does. So we're looking at creative solutions and having those conversations like Ed said, and I'm very, very hopeful.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more.
Alan, you were the only, I'm Tom Henkel, by the way. Alan, you were the only one that specifically mentioned energy efficient buildings for new development. Since the town cannot require such of developers, what specific things would you do to incentivize developers to put up energy efficient buildings?
So I believe, Tom, you had submitted a petition during last week's town council meeting. And, you know, one thing I liked was the incentive, the economic incentive for developers to build buildings that are energy efficient. So that's, I mean, that's something that I would like to pursue if for some reason we don't adopt that resolution or adopt that. That's one approach that I would bring.
Right. But anybody like, I see Carl's hand. And then Rachel, is that yours too?
If it's okay. I don't know what.
It's okay with me.
Well, concision and brevity right here. So for energy efficiency, building costs and materials will get cheaper and cheaper over time. You're already seeing that with solar panels, right? What used to be gosh amounts and people renting these panels. Now they are much smaller, and at some point that they're going to be embedded into the siding. So I think that will come with time, but in the short term, economic incentives and placing that as a priority, and it fits with the Chapel Hill 2020 plan. That's how you do it.
Right, and then Rachel?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we can change what currently exists to include solar panels and LED lights and things that on buildings we've already got, but then for future development going forward, we need to be really clear that this is something we value and we prioritize it. If developers want to develop here, they need to be green. So there is a long list of developers that build green. They're in Raleigh, they're in Durham, they're in Chapel Hill. They're not coming from far and wide, they're not from other planets. They're right here in our backyard, and we can work with them to build the buildings that we want to see in our town.
Great, please. Yeah, go ahead. And
Okay, well,
I think we had leftover time that time.
okay, so if we talk about incentives, I think there are many things that the town actually can do. So one is the density bonus. So we can offer it to the developers that if they want, if they will abide by this environment protection standard, then we can allow them to build the building that's of higher density. So that's the density bonus. And in the same token, we can have the area bonus as well. And also we can consider this expedited permitting process because it is a known fact that the permitting process is complicated in our town. So if we can offer these options for the developers, if they abide by the environmental standards, we can expedite that process.
Thank you. And let's get our last question.
Hi, my name is David Adams, and I'd like to hear everybody answer the question, but at least one incumbent and one challenger. The form-based code, among many things that it did, it limited citizen input to developmental decisions and vested a great deal of power into the city manager for making decisions. So my question is, how do you see the relationship between the town council and the city manager in making important decisions? And who's supposed to be driving the bus?
All right, so in the spirit of loosening up my restrictive regulations up here, no 2 minutes. It wasn't directed to anybody in particular. I know that there were a lot of people that wanted to get in on form-based code earlier, didn't have a chance to. 45 seconds for anybody that wants it. And anybody will have a chance. Last thing tonight. So who wants to go first? 45 seconds anyway on form-based code. Not 45 minutes. That would be I think the town employees would be pretty upset at us about that.
I think when we speak about that kind of authority, I think the town manager and, of course, the town council, we should be inclusive about that so that everybody can have a say in decisions that are made that impacts this community. Not only impacts the community, but impacts Chapel Hill and its workers. So I would suggest that we not have the town attorney, the town manager to address those situations and have the authority to make the decisions when it affects it impacts other people's lives.
Thank you.
Citizens of Chapel Hill.
Who else?
Council sets policy, manager enacts what council sets policy for. There are many other ways that we've gotten citizens involved in form-based code this past year and a half. We've had the different committees and different commissions bring forward tweaks and changes that they wanted to hear. We've listened to citizens. We've asked staff to investigate. We have passed several changes to the form-based code. So I want those to continue. I want those eyes and ears from the community telling us what they still don't like. I'm telling you, it's still not right. We have an opportunity to keep making changes to get the outcome we want. So I want to see that continue. I encourage people to bring their petitions, to speak up, to go to the CDC, the planning board, all those different groups, and bring that information forward.
Thank you.
I want to remind us of the purpose of form-based code, which was to attract investment in an area that wasn't beautiful trees, it was holes and pavement. And so what we want in that area is economic investment. We can get it better. We're looking at revising block sizes. We're looking at making changes, but we hired the best experts in the country to advise us on how to build. And there are reasons why you go to 7 stories from 4, because you change the construction type from wood to concrete, and you have to have 7 stories to make it viable financially. So there are reasons, and thoughtful people can disagree on the process, but we have to get it right, and then the manager makes it work. But we make the decision on what goes there.
Okay, Carl?
Very quickly, I agree with what Madam Mayor had to say, but as a process, that's exactly so. You have opportunity before the start of council for citizen comment. You also have comment during the planning board and the CDC commissions to take citizens' comments. This is brought forth to the council. This would be looked at, this would be vetted, but it is clear that it is the manager Stansel does enact and does the bidding essentially of the council's desire. And that's the way that you would have it. You would have responsibilities handed out. You would have information coming back. That's how you would do it. You would also include citizen comment.
Right.
Make a comment about external experts. Well, I understand that there are external experts and with different aspects of the building codes. But I think it's important still that we need to listen to what the people in our town really want, because there is no one-size-fits-all standards that will fit into every single community. And the Chapel Hill has its own standards and has its own values and the characters, and we need to respect that. And for us to do that is to listen, listen to the people.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, we're a little past 9, but not too much, so that's pretty darn good. We'll count 9:07 as pretty good. And I want to thank everybody for abiding by having a moderator, let alone me as your moderator tonight. So I really appreciate you all having me. I appreciate you all for
Thank you, Will.
serving,
Appreciate
and
you.
I'm glad to be here. And yeah, now's the time to applaud for these 9 brave folks up here, and a little bit for CHALT. Let's give them a round of applause for bringing us together here tonight. Thank you very much.